Casual Magic has been brought to you by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can get cool stuff. Use the code CASUAL for 5% off your order. We're also sponsored by Quiver Time, makers of the Quiver and Bolt deck cases and other fine card-holding accessories. Use the code CASUAL on their site for 10% off your purchase. And by Architect, a deck hosting website that doesn't sell anything, but they like me and I like them, so kindly use them for all your deck list needs. Now, on to the show. Hello and welcome to Casual Magic, the show where we talk about the fun side of Magic the Gathering. My name is Shivam, Bhatt, and Casual Magic is brought to you by Cool Stuff Inc., Architect, and Quiver Time. Today I have a very special guest, a dude I've bought a lot of cards from on the internet and also just had a lot of pleasant chats with for many, many years now. One of the OGs in Magic Finance, Jonathan Medina. Hey, my friend. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me.
I made it to the show. What's up? Yeah. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've been trying to figure out sometime in the past 3 years. I'm like, I should have you on my show. Yeah, so I hope you had a good holiday season and that your store is doing well and all that sort of thing.
The store is doing great. It's doing actually much better than I expected. And I just feel blessed for that.
Yeah. It's irony that I just got in the mail a Pendelhaven that I just bought from you. So
it looks good, right? The condition is insane.
It looks like I had it back in middle school, which is kind of wild. Thank you so much, by the way. I couldn't find my middle school copy of Pendelhaven, and that was driving me insane. But yeah, man. Oh my goodness. But yeah, it's great to see you. And I'm actually just been really curious to talk to you because of the fact that you and your store, Alchemist, Refuge, you put a lot of sales and stuff online, which I do really appreciate and enjoy. Like you and Jeremy and Ryan are the three people that I buy the most from. So it's cool to have all of y'all show up on my show and talk about it. But as somebody who has seen Magic's finance kind of go up and down and bought and sold a lot of cards, I'm just really curious about your perspective, especially these days where it feels like every card has 12 copies and every set is 6,000 cards.
Well, yeah, things have changed. Things have changed a lot over the years. So many. I remember when the Mythic Rare was first introduced, and it was wow, it really changed the dynamic of what a rare was worth,
right,
and what an uncommon could be worth, I remember when that happened, I wrote an article called "I Don't Believe in Rares," and people were like, "Well, what do you mean? Of course rares are going to still be worth money." And if they could see now, right? Of course, I didn't imagine what would happen now, where every rare is a bulk rare,
right? That's one of the things that drives me crazy. It's these days. It feels and I don't mean to soapbox immediately 10 seconds into the show.
Let's go.
But it feels now that we have collector's boxes and we have the ability to get 12 mythics in a pack and all the rares you want. Right now, it feels like the most expensive card in a set is just a plain Jane uncommon. Random non-foil uncommon is the hardest thing in the world to find just because they're not going to show up in your collector's packs and set boosters and whatever. And you're where the hell...
Yeah, up the beanstalk, right? Was
right,
one of those
up
ones
the beanstalk or pitiless plunderer or whatever.
Yeah.
It's where are these random cards? Yeah.
Don't worry, Wizards will put it in a commander deck in the next year or so. You know what I
mean? Don't remind me. Oh my god. Yeah, it's wild though, because when you look back at Shards of Alara, where mythics came from, the mythics there were just. They felt mythic, like a Johnny Vengeant or
Godsire,
or Hellkite Overload or whatever. These are big, flashy mega cards, Crush the Bloodbraided. And now it's random utility cards you need to play Standard are all just mythic. It's why is this a mythic? I don't know. I guess they want it to be played in the.
It's wild what they've done. I don't know, I guess this is part of the Booster Fund project, right? All these different variations and whatnot. I think it's a very complex thing that's happening with card pricing and infinite variants and stuff like that. There are so many reasons why cards are not worth, hardly anything. And I think they're doing a lot of stuff that they think they need to do to sell product, but I don't think they need to do that. Like I think they could like pull back a lot of things and sell just as much product.
Yeah.
And they're really running into an issue right now. It's kind of the same issue with like natural resources, right? Where like if you strip mine, I used to work in the mining industry, and
Oh, geez.
what they would do is they would strip mine this like calcium deposits, and clear
Mm.
them out, and they would have to find new deposits, because what would happen is they would just mine all the calcium out of that just for the sake of profits, right? If we get more calcium, then we can, process that faster. We can make
Mm.
more money. They're doing the same thing with their reprint equity at the value of their product, right?
Mm.
So they're saying, oh, like, let's just strip mine all of this reprint equity, and then we can reap all the money now. But like that causes sustainability problems in the future, you know? Because they
Yeah.
don't have the catalog. Before, they had like a catalog to draw from to really strategically put pressure where they need to put pressure, and
Mm.
now they're really grasping for something to do to put that pressure, serialized cards, other kind of things, because it's like, well, now it's a reprint's not going to do it because you reprinted that 2 months ago, you
Yeah.
know and so it's like, eh, as you start to go down this road, I feel like you don't have to do any of that. You could just pull back and just be more careful with what you reprint, how you
Mm.
present the product. And I don't think they're concerned with doing that.
Yeah, like that's one of the things I've been thinking about a lot, because I was just doing my year in review, which tells you when this is recorded, folks. But I was doing my year in review for like Magic, and I realized like they printed like Tasek Karlov like 5 times this year with different arts and different prints. In WoW, they printed like Doubling Season, Parallel Lives, all these, like they've taken all these great chase cards. Which, first off, I fully believe that having more copies of things is good because people get to play them. It's good to have like very expensive cards show up again so that we can sit and make sure that nobody feels gatekept or left out of the game. But then the trade-off is suddenly like these cards plummet in value. And like, okay, do you want value or do you want accessibility? And I'm not sure that Wizards has figured out which one they want. And like they're trying to find a way to walk that line with both. Like, okay, we want value, so here's your ultra uber alt art and your serialized card, and here's your accessibility, 300,000 copies of Doubling Season. What do you want to do? And it's weird. It's weird because like there's cards I'm like, man, we need a reprint of Oversold Cemetery, and it's like, oh, we got like 3 of them this year. Okay, maybe we didn't need 3 in a row. Maybe we could
Yeah.
have paced it over 20 years, but like it feels a little bit like when you're looking at a pipe and you want water and it's dripping water, one drop, and you're like, man, I wish I had more water. And somebody's like, all right, here comes the lid
They
off, and
bring a
just like,
fire hose over.
yeah, and suddenly you got the fire hose and you just get launched back, and you're like, not helpful.
Too much water.
not helpful. But I appreciate the thought.
I will say
like,
this: there's a lot of negativity about the versions and stuff like that,
I think
and
it's
I
cool.
get it. And as a store, yeah, I could say, if I put my store owner hat on, I could complain about that, right? But
Sure.
as a player, it is kind of cool that you get to customize your deck to like be
Oh, I love it.
really like such an expression of yourself, right? Because it's like, oh, you look up a card and there's like 15 different versions. You're like, oh, wait, which one do I want to pick for my deck?
Exactly.
I think that's a really cool thing. So I wish it would have took longer to get there. I think they could have paced it. And I think the way that they're approaching value, where it's like, oh, uber rare serial card is the value, and then the reprint is the accessibility. I still think that's not the best way to approach. A lot of people that I know who play the game don't want the serial cards. Serial
No.
cards are the kind of things that people will just sell to me, and they just sit on my shelf. They don't ever sell. Like, I never sell them. They just get sold to me, I just buy them and then they just sit there,
Yeah.
So like
I've opened 2 serialized cards, and one of them is like, I gave it to Professor because it was a Doctor Who card. And I'm
That's
like, I
sweet
don't
of
care
you.
about Doctor Who, but it was the Doctor that he played in the show. I mean, in his like episode about Doctor Who, he had the cosplay, and I'm like, look, here's a serialized card of your cosplay, dude. You deserve it. You love
That's
Doctor
very
Who,
cool.
and you're not going to sell it. You're just going to hang on to it. It's fine. And then I got a Tide Spout Tyrant in like Ravnica, and I'm like, I don't want this card. I don't care about this card. Now I have to put it in a sleeve and shove it somewhere. And it's weird because like I think they're like, and I also got a serialized Aurelia, but that's cool. I like Aurelia, and it's just neat. And I was like, I don't mind having that in my binder, but like, I'm never gonna play with it. Like, I love collect. There's cards I keep to collect. There's
Right.
cards I like to put in my binder and look at, but serialized cards are just like I don't understand what I don't understand who wants these necessarily. Like, I'm one of those people who I love collecting. I love all the different frame treatments and getting things, but serialized ones are just I don't understand.
It's like one of those things, like, where do you start with the criticism or the feedback, right? Like,
Mm,
I I think there's probably an implementation of, like, serialized cards, like the one of one ring. That
mm,
was a cool implementation,
right.
you know? But
Exactly.
but, like, when you're like, "Here's 35 cards, and they're all one of 500, and some of them are uncommons," it's like, I don't I get it. Like, there are some things, like if it's a commander or something, or
Sure.
it's one of 100. There was like this happened actually this weekend. We were at the shop. It was like 2:30 in the morning, and that's when everyone comes around the counter and they start cracking packs. Right?
Mm.
It's like, all right, I'm getting out. I'm gonna close my tab. Let's get some packs. And so everyone's cracking packs. I'm part of the fun. I love those special edition Lord of the Rings packs. I'm
Mm.
trying to get the One Ring like poster version foil for my deck, and so I'm like cracking the packs too. And we're down to like we open a new box. Okay, so we're like, all right, fresh box, everybody. I'm going to discount these packs. Let's discount them. Everybody takes some packs, and they're like, all right, all right. So everyone gets them. The whole box disappears, right? We start cracking them, and one of the guys, Mike, he opens up. He's like, "Oh," I'm like, "Oh, you got a poster foil? Sick!" It was a Tom Bombadil. He's like, "Yeah, I got a serial," and I'm like, "Wait, it's serialized?" He's like, "Yeah, look, it's serialized," and I was like,
What?
"Whoa!" So the Tom Bombadils, those serialized, the posters are one of 100, or like, there's only 100 of each of them.
That's
And
wild.
yeah, that's like thousands of dollars, a couple thousand, for that
Jeez.
card. So he went nuts. It was like, but it was a cool moment, 2:30 in the morning. Who thinks you're gonna walk out of the
Like
card store with a
that's the stories
$2,000
you
card?
want, right?
Yeah, it was such a cool moment. So I love those moments, and I think that doing serial cards right can lead to those kind of moments. You want those kind of stories in the game. I think that it's with Withers, it's always like too much, right? They're
Mm.
always just like, you like serialized? What's that? Yo, dog, you like serialized? So we put serialized in
Yes,
your
sure.
serial.
Cereal.
It's just like too much.
That's I think it's I think that's a lot of it. It's just like, hey kid, you want candy? Okay, I'm gonna just like, flood you with frosting until you die. It's like, that's not what I meant. I want like I think if they had paced this, I think if they did the one-on-one ring, they did some of the like serialized legends from Mom or whatever.
Yeah,
That's cool. That's really neat, and I like the uniqueness of it. But then the fact that every set's got serial cards, and it's just like I don't
right.
like getting a one ring or getting like an serialized Aragon or something like that. That's cool. Getting a serialized Tide Spout Tyrant, Eh, like who cares, man? Like nobody's out there hunting for a serialized Slimefoot or something, right? Like what do we want? Um, I don't know.
Yeah,
I feel
it's
like
rough.
it's not going to get better before it does, but Watsy's got like a lot in the pipeline, so we gotta suffer through a lot of cereals, I guess.
It's really hard for them to see, right? Because it's like it's equal profit.
Mm,
So like they're like, hey, look, you don't like what we're doing, but we're making a bunch of money. So, but I think what they're not considering is what they've done to their brand and their equity, like their catalog equity, what they've done to businesses,
mm,
what they've done to like um to players' collections, and the trust kind of that's lost in the product itself. Before it used to be like, hey, I have my magic cards, I invest a lot in this game, but when the time comes, if my car breaks down or if something happens at my house, I can replace my roof with my legacy deck or with my, you know, that was a thing. And so that would justify people to spend and to invest in their product. And now they've gutted that profit margin out, because what they've done is they've said, we're going to direct to consumer with these secret layers, and through the reprint cadence, we're going to up the reprint cadence and sell our sealed product on the back of reprints instead of on the backs of like merit for the set or whatever. And so they've basically extracted all the value out of people's collections and out of businesses' inventory to get their profit. And when they've done that, they don't realize that causes structural issues. It causes trust issues. And it's like, okay, you made the money now, but what's going to happen in the future?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Like, at some point, it's not going to be exciting for somebody to get another demonic tutor or necropotence or whatever. Or like what is a chase card anymore when there's like 300 copies of it, right? Like,
Mana Crypt is still a chase card.
Fair. Like Mana Crypt, Jeweled Lotus, Shures,
yeah,
and even certain values of Soul Ring, like, or at least for me, I love me a Soul Ring. But like that, I think like
you're not the only one, Shivam.
That's the thing. Soul Rings and Command Towers, reprint them into the dust, put as many versions as you want. I will take them all. But yeah, it's a little draining. I mean, that's why like I open up my binder once in a while. Like my kid likes to flip through the cards, and he's like, "Look, Papa, what is this candle?" I'm like, "Because I've got a candelabra, I've got a cradle, all these things." And I'm like, "Okay, well, that's your college fund. They're not going to reprint that anytime soon, right?"
Maybe.
I mean, the 30th anniversary thing. Who even knows anymore?
Yeah.
Good God, what did you think when they reprinted Alpha?
Well, I did not have the negative reaction that a lot of people did have. It just wasn't surprising to me. They had done something like this before with the collector edition, where it's like gold border on the back and black border. So it wasn't surprising to me. To me, it was like them testing the water. I think the implementation again. They need like a team for implementations, right? Mm-hmm. We have this great idea, but we don't need to know how to implement it. I think the implementation was bad, but I do think that with that product, it's hard to strike a good implementation, right? Because it's so weird too. They're sending such a mixed message, right? It's like, we don't want to devalue like a Black Lotus. So we're going to make these things $1,000, right? But it's like, but we're going to devalue everything else. It's like, if you care about the value of your product and like your catalog equity, then like, let's be consistent, right? Like, protect that, right? The catalog equity was so valuable, and like, you're just strip mining it. Like, treat it well. Like, there's so much nostalgia, so much things that you can use as a tool to gain your profit out of that catalog equity. I understand you're a business, you got to make profit. I get it. And I know that's what you're trying to do as a business. I get that. But like, do it in a smart way. Like, why? What is it about like shearing a sheep or, skinning a cat? I don't know. There's some kind of, right? You can, whatever the adage is, like, there's something to do with like,
don't shear your cats.
some people do.
Yeah, no, but I think you've hit on it. Is that like, look, these ideas are not on their face terrible. However, the fact that they're trying them all at once and they're just doing it so willy-nilly and like without forethought and without like considering the audience reaction, or like, can the audience even absorb this? Can we handle this? Do we even have money for this stuff? Who are you trying to sell to? Yeah, I don't know. I can't afford an $1,000 booster pack. I don't know about you, but
it kind of like tilts me because Magic is so good. Like, they make such a good product, right? It's like world-class game, world-class artist, world-class designers, and then they take it and they just like peddle it like, like discount Pokemon at the freaking, at the flea market. It's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you have this awesome product, right? You could easily raise prices. You could easily do these different things. Your demographic is in the demographic that they can afford to pay more. I know nobody wants to
Right.
do that, right? But you could do that as a business. And instead of doing that, you take it and you cheapen your brand. You strip the equity out of your catalog. You do all of this stuff to make money. And it's like, you don't need to do that. I don't know. And I think to myself, like, am I just dumb? Like, am I like, I'm looking at this situation and saying, you guys are doing this all wrong, but there's so many smart people working there, right? It's like, someone has to be like, this is not right. You know, maybe it's just something I'm not seeing. Maybe it's a blind spot or something.
Maybe it's because we aren't Harvard MBAs sitting here going like, hey, you know, it just drives me mad because like I want Magic to be accessible and I want people to be able to play it. And honestly, it's the most accessible it's ever been. It's easy to get like $20. The $20 intro commander decks they made were fantastic. Like it's so easy to get your start into Magic. The problem is that like I don't know. Like I said, it comes back to this weird balance. Like who do you want as your customer? Do you want this game to last for a long time, or do you want to try to flood the market and then flee? You know, I'm like, this is not sustainable. This is not sustainable, and it's burning out the designers to have to make 10,000 cards a year. It's burning out the players who don't know what. Like every day I post a card, and every day I get comments of like, when the hell did this come out? I'm like, 3 days ago, or like the beginning of the year, and people are like, I played that set and I don't know this card. I'm like, that's because it was a set booster exclusive that was only available in Thailand for 4 days a year. And you're like, what? What the hell is that?
You know, Mark Rosewater talked about in his podcast, one of the episodes, he does this like, you know, how he makks the game and stuff like that.
Yeah, fantastic.
And he was talking about how they're running out of names, like names for cards. Like if you start looking at card names, like they're really getting more and more involved, right? Because you're running out of things like, you know, like Jump. That name is gone. Like that's already on a card. It's already on the catalog, right?
Yeah.
And so with this accelerated printing, that even becomes more and more a problem, you know. And
exactly.
Again, like I think you could sell the same product a bunch of different ways, and you don't have to sell a bunch of different products. And I think like what they're saying is you're asking like, who is your audience and who are you trying to sell to? I think their conclusion is right. Everyone is our audience. We want to sell to everyone. But It's like, yeah, but you should craft products for different segments and you should target them in ways and gate them in ways where other people are not going to feel like, you know, oh, I need to buy that, right? And they have done this a little bit in the secret layers, right? Not everyone feels like, oh, I need to, not to give secret layer praises because, you know, I hate that model. But, you know, what I will say is like, this is a good idea because not everyone feels like they need to buy every secret layer, right? It's like, oh, I like that art style. I'm going to buy that. Use that like lesson that you learned from secret layers and you see where you can gate this stuff. Use that to target your markets and use other methods, you know, the legality of the cards, right? You know, like if they're not legal in Commander, the Commander people are not going to buy it, right? And then they're going to, you know, when they ask that question, then they'll be like, well, we want Commander people to buy it. It's like, well, okay, now you're blurring the lines. You can't make products for everybody and then price point them in ways that it's like, this is not for you. You know, you have to make it targeted. You have to put it in the price point you want for collectors or whatever, or for Commander players. You have to make it legal in that format, you know, open the gates, treat it like this little thing where you want to take the sheep into the pen, right? Like, I don't know. I could talk about this kind of stuff all day long. I have opinions.
No, I mean, I'm sitting here like you're absolutely right. Like one of the things that struck me is that like this happened in 22, but basically Concordant Crossroads, one of my pet cards. Right. It's a card that hadn't been printed again since like 4th edition or like Chronicles or something like that. It was like in Legends and Chronicles. And then we got a secret layer with Siddharth Chaturvedi who did a version of Concordant Crossroads. And a whole bunch of us were like, oh my God, we've been waiting for this card to be reprinted in 1,000 years. So we're going to go buy the secret layer. Literally months later, Double Masters 22 comes out. And in it are like 3 different arts of Concordant Crossroads being reprinted. And I'm like, I wouldn't have bought the secret layer if I knew it was going to come in the set with the art that I actually like more.
The borderless art is fire. I gotta say that.
Oh, dude. both of them. I love that board with the tree,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then
Yeah. With the
Alana
tree.
Daner's one with the. Oh God, I mean, it's
Yeah.
one of my favorite cards of all time. I'm not gonna like sit and say it isn't, but like, it's just it was so annoying to me. Like these, just it felt like
Right.
unnecessary. Or
It
like,
is.
hey, if you're gonna reprint it, there's a lot of cards that need reprinting. Maybe let's not just give the same slot to the same card over and over again.
I
We
think
don't need 5 Tesas.
they need to put like a reprint, like kind of like a shelf life on things. Like say
Mm,
this won't be reprinted for like 2 years or
mm,
a year. Some some number, you know?
yeah.
And and uh and then like that will give people, that gives like business predictability, right?
Mm,
As a business, I can buy that card. Like say it's 2 years, right? You want to give it enough time for it to creep up, right? So
sure.
like let's say it's 2 years. Well, if it's year one and someone brings me that card, I know I can pay a good number on it because over the next year I can sell it, right?
Mm,
If it's like month 22, right?
mm,
I know to pay less on that because now it gets up for reprinting, you know? And the problem we have now is we just buy stuff and then it gets reprinted and we're basically upside down in the card. And so what that does is it disincentivizes people to hold inventory because it's like we don't want inventory because it's going to get like devalued through reprints.
mm,
So then what that does is it messes with people who come to the store. They go, "Hey, I want to pick up some singles." Well, I don't have inventory because if we hold it, we're going to lose money. Now, I don't do that. Like I hold inventory and I take the hit. But that's because that's the kind of store I want to have, is a store that you could come and buy singles at, because that's the kind of store I grew up with. So like I I haven't solved that problem for myself. How do I shield myself from just taking the hit? I don't want to do that as a business, but like I have a conflicting thing, right? Because I
mm.
want to hold inventory, but to do that, I get punched in the face.
Yeah,
So
like
like,
my local store had to like sell out 7 million cards worth of like just bulk and inventory and like singles and stuff because people aren't buying them because like they can either go to TCG Player when they need it immediately or any number of things. And it's just like it takes a lot of space and it costs a lot of money and it's
right.
very hard to store. And you don't know if you're just going to take a bath on these like old cards or not. Like I know though, I did make him really happy when I went and bought like a whole brick of cards to make a Dan Dan deck. He's like, I don't know that I've opened this particular box in like 15 years, but here's all my Chronicles copies of Dan Dan. Happy birthday. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
let's
there we
go.
go.
Um, but yeah, it's so sad and frustrating just to watch like stores struggle to try like because without stores we don't have community. Without community, we don't have the thing that makes the game want something people want to buy, right? Like why would you play
Exactly.
Magic if there's nowhere to play Magic?
And
And
I want to be careful not to lean too hard into that narrative because as a store, there's lots of stuff you can do, right?
mm,
You have to be strategic. And the sad thing is it equals not engaging with Wizards product as much as you want to as a store, right? Because
mm,
it's like, look, you have to sometimes say we're not buying Magic for cash because we can't play that game. We can't play the game of chicken in the road
mm,
by buying for cash, but that hurts the value of the product. Hurts the
mm.
value of Wizards product. We just like, hey, we're going to start holding Lorcana tournaments. There's Lorcana. Everyone's in the Lorcana's filling up the store. People come out to play Commander. What? There's no seats. Well, because we're doing Lorcana today. Well, why are you doing Lorcana? Well,
It's
because
filled my store. That's why.
we need to make, we need to keep the lights on, we need to Lorcana's dope too. That's why. But like, you know, this is the thing, is like that's gonna make us diversify. It's gonna make us do different things. And I think like every business should try to be strategic about what they're doing. Bring the prices that you're buying at down. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Um, do different things that builds community. Focus on your space. Like make your space something that people want to go to, whether it's to play Magic or to hang out
mm,
or to like work on their laptop. Like
right.
make it something that, because without that, like you can't depend. Here's the sad thing, and I'm just going to say it: you cannot depend on Wizards to have your back on that. You cannot depend on Wizards to sustain your business. You need to yourself make a plan for your business that if Wizards lives or dies, your business lives.
Mm.
That's the responsible thing to do. And, it would be nice to say, hey, don't worry, man, Wizards got your back. This product is like rock solid. It's just not anymore. That's the thing.
Yeah, it's wild to think about it. But like, you're right. All the stores I know are doing things like, well, we now have Fab Night, we now have One Piece Night, we now have Lorcana Night. We got to build, like, before, stores that were reliably, literally just paying their rent with Magic cards are now like, Magic cards are going to be the smaller part of my store is no longer pre-ordering product except for a product that customers specifically ask for.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
if they don't pay for it up front, they're not getting more than what, because like they took a bath on, I don't know, Brothers War or One or
Yeah.
any number of these other just sets that they're just like, look, these are super expensive and we're not winning here. This is not going to keep my store afloat.
Yeah. It makes it so people can't come into the local game store and just buy a box.
Right.
And it's like, well, why can't they do that? Why don't you hold the box? Well, we're not going to hold the bag. You know what I mean? We're not going to do that. And it's like, it's for the survival of the business. It's for the workers who are working at the business. It's for their livelihood.
Salaries, man.
It's for giving the space and keeping the lights on. Like, look, I'd rather have like every box available. I'd rather have every single available. But like, with the way that Wizards is running their business, they do not afford me the ability to do that and not be exposed. Doing that and being exposed and just like trusting them when you can't trust them. And anybody who's watching, like from Wizards, look, I love you guys. I love your product. I've been playing this game for I don't know how many years, 15 years or whatever. I'm not trying to be negative about this stuff, but this is the reality of things.
Yeah.
And it's a reality I have to be like very cognizant of when I'm trying to run a business, because otherwise, if you have the wrong idea, if you think that you can trust those things, then you're gonna lose over and over again.
It's such a tough, like, it's such a it sucks. It sucks. Is really the bottom line. Is like, this is so frustrating to me because Wizards and stores and players had a symbiotic relationship that worked for a very long time. Everybody was making money, everybody was enjoying themselves, profiting, and like the store owners had singles, the players wanted singles, they could buy product from Wizard.
Right.
There was a relationship and it was balanced and level, and now it's been upended because WotC's like, what if we got both sides of that equation, and what if we were the store ourselves and selling singles directly? And it's like, bro, how do these guys build a community for people who will buy your product if they can't pay the rent because these guys can just buy the stuff from Amazon straight? It's
I do want to say, we are talking a lot of like, there is a lot of like things to be like, like that's not good. But I will say, like, one thing I was pleasantly surprised by was the WPN support. When I first started the store, I'm new to the store. Like, I'm not new to business. Like, I've been doing online business for a long time and like online retail and stuff like that. But I'm new to the store thing. And when we started our storefront and we got in touch with WPN support, they have been awesome about onboarding the store, about providing us promos, about like answering any question we had. Wizards does a lot of cool things like that. They have the premium program, which seems pretty cool. They give grants to people to try to get into the premium program. So like you can upgrade your tables and your chairs.
Oh, that's very cool.
Yeah, it's a super cool thing. I applied for this year. I don't think I'm going to get it this year, but I'm going to apply next year for it. And we're going to try to get like the premium tables and premium seats and stuff like that. But like, I think all of that stuff is cool. Like, they're doing a great job in the WPN support area of things, but it's really just about like their product itself is in trouble in the sense of it's in trouble from a financial perspective, right? And from like a fatigue perspective. And also there's new threats. When you have things like One Piece and like Lorcana, and everybody will be like, oh, that's a flash in the pan. That's these things take market share. I've seen plenty of people sell out of Magic for Flesh and Blood. Plenty of people sell out of Magic for Lorcana, and all as it takes is like a weaker relationship with the product for them to do that. Because at the end of the day, it's not really about the product. Okay. It's about the people.
Mm.
Okay. It's about the people. It's about the product is the common language that we all kind of gather around, right? If there's a different common language, they'll use that, you
Yeah.
know? If there's something that like makes more sense financially, or, if people like, let's say one person sells out, but they're like big in the community, well, they're going to bring everybody else over to that new game, because those people are going to want to be around that person. It's
Well,
not really
you want to do what your friends are doing. If your friends are playing Magic, like
right.
when I left Magic the first time in like 1998 or whatever it was, like I stopped playing because all my friends stopped playing. We all got PlayStation. We started playing Final Fantasy and doing other things. And it's not, you can't play Magic by yourself. You
No.
can't. And so it just, if your friends aren't playing, you've got no impetus to play. And if your store's not selling, you've got no impetus to buy. And then you're like, well, that's a customer you're losing, and they're not going to come back just because like Innistrad 4 came out or whatever, right? Like it's customer connection is very tenuous and fragile, and keeping them engaged and believing in your product means treating them with respect and treating them like somebody that you want to interact with in business. And when you start treating your customers like your cattle and you want to just, milk them all day, then eventually they're going to drain dry, and we're going to be like, I would rather go to a place where they don't treat me like a farm animal.
Right. If the
But
customers are feeling that way, then you've done a really bad job of like
burning
letting
goodwill, man.
yeah, taking care of that goodwill and cultivating like a relationship with them. I will say the beautiful thing about Magic and any of these TCGs is that you can't do it alone.
Hmm.
It draws you into a social interaction with people, and helps you to find like, lifelong relationships, and brings you in contact with people who we need each other, and it's very cool that Magic does that. It's very it's a beautiful thing. It's one of the things that keeps me engaged with
Mm,
this industry, right? Is that
exactly.
it creates a space for people to exist and to connect, and it's
Yes.
like that's a beautiful thing.
That's exactly it. It's like, I mean, that's the whole premise of why I in even part of this is that the community, like the cards are just the thing we gather for. They're not. If the cards aren't here, we'll gather for something else, right? But
Right.
it's such a convenient and easy way to find friends, an easy way to like just smooth over a lot of the hard parts of socializing. It's like, look, we both have these cards, we can play, and then the rest of it will come. It just breaks that ice and gives you that like step inwards, and I think it's so important. I mean, the community is the heart and soul of this. Um, but I want to pivot off of this because we went down a darker path than I was expecting.
We went dark real fast.
But I mean, like it's true though, because like it's sad to see something that you love just suffering and
Mhm.
just like getting poorly handled. But when did you start playing Magic? How did you find this?
So
Why?
I originally found Magic in high school.
Mm.
So we didn't play Magic in high school because it was like the devil's game. You know what I'm saying? And so like we played Redemption, which was the Christian.
I
It was a
remember.
Christian card game, and I remember I went over to my friend's house. His name was Ryan Turpin, and he owed me money. I went out, he lived down the street from me. I walked down to his house, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm here to get that money you owe me." And he's like, "All right, check it out. I don't have all the money, but I have this Mohammadi Djinn or whatever the he's like, I got like this much money in this Djinn." And I'm like, "What am I supposed to do with this?" And he's like, "Dude, it's worth money, man." And this was like, must have been like 97 or something like that. It was probably like one of the best cards. He was probably giving me like his best card in his collection. But I'm like, dude, I don't have any Magic cards. I don't play this game. Like, and he's like, yeah, you could take this. And trust me, dude, you could sell this for money. And I'm like, all right, I'll take it. So I took it and I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't want my dad to find it. I was still living in my dad's house. He would be like, Magic, And so I just hid it in my stuff. I think later after I moved out or whatever, it was still in like one of my shoe boxes or something.
Oh, that's funny as hell.
But that was my first like interaction with Magic. I didn't start playing until like it was like Time Spiral. Time Spiral block is like 2006. It was in Vermont when I lived in Vermont. I was looking for I had like a graphic design business,
Mm.
and
You've done a lot of weird things, man.
I've
Like
done
mining and graphic design. What?
Look, I've done so much. I even had a Christian magazine that we used to publish.
What?
Yeah, it's wild, man. We used to send that all over the United States, but that's for another day. Yeah, I had this graphic design business, and I was working at the time in IT, and I was like doing two jobs basically, and I was like, I need a hobby, and I had just gotten married, and I told my wife I need a hobby, and so the guy who I was doing graphic design with, he was like fresh out of like art school, and he's like, hey, have you ever tried magic? And I'm like, no, I've never tried it. I'll try it. He's like, yeah. I used to play it, and this guy was a Christian too. So I'm like, hey man, if he's doing it, it must be okay. So like, I'm like, I'll try it. So I started going. The only place that had it, it was Vermont, so not very populated. The only place that had it was in the mall. There was a sports shop, and in the sports shop, this guy had booster packs, and he had boxes in the back with bulk. And I would go back there, and I would just I would like dig through the bulk because they were like 10 cents a card or something. And I remember one day I was like, I'll just get one of these booster packs. I'm going to try one of these things out. So I bought a booster pack, and then like I started going up there every day, and I was like buying like stacks of booster packs every day. I'd be like, all right, let me get some of this. Let me get some of that. I mean, I was in IT, and I had this graphic design firm. Like I had money, So I was like, yeah, it's fine. And like it started becoming like $200 a week in like in like magic booster packs. And my wife was like, hey, look, I know we could afford it, but like what's happening here? Because she never even
they're called the bathroom, buddy. Let's do this. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, it's like, whoa, this is like cardboard and you're spending all this money. Like this doesn't make no sense to me. And I was like, yeah, but look, I said, once I build my deck, I won't spend any more money. We all know that's not true.
That's so.
Yeah. But I didn't know because I was just getting into the game. So I'm like, oh, once you have your deck finished, it's done. That's it. You just need to buy all these booster packs until you build a deck.
It's for sure done.
You'll never spend another dime. So what ended up happening is basically I played with those guys for a bit. The trouble with playing with those guys is they're all old school. So they had like dual lands. They had all the stuff, and they didn't like playing standard because they had all the dual lands and stuff. So they just played Legacy in the mall. And so, like, I'm trying to get into Magic, and they're like, yeah, we play Legacy here.
Oh, God.
And I'm like, I don't have dual lands. I have, I opened this pain land in M10. I don't know. I guess I'll use this. And so, like, I was playing with that stuff, and I remember my wife clamped down. She was like, look, you get $5 a month, $5 a week. And I was like, $5 a week. I'm like, look, the tournament is $5. Like, I won't be able to afford any cards, And she's like, all right, $10. So I got my tournament entry and a $5 per diem a week to do Magic. And that's basically how I started playing Magic and how I started trading, because I was like, well, if I'm ever going to get cards, I need to learn how to trade because I can't afford them on this $5 a week budget.
That's funny. I mean, look, I'll be honest. When I got back into the game, my wife did she indulged me for a bit, and I'm like, oh, look, I'm coming with a booster box. I've never gotten to own a booster box before. She's like, okay. And then something's like lots of boxes, and she's like, okay, now we're going to talk about limits. Yeah. It's like, look, if you're going to be spending like a fire hose, we're going to put a faucet on this.
That's right.
Like, okay, that's fair. It works a lot better now.
But look at you now. It worked out.
It sure did. I'm certainly not surrounded by things off camera. Piles of infinite magic cards or anything. Yeah, let me tell you. It's hard, man. It's really hard, especially once you're an adult and have a salary and you're not dealing with like when I was a kid and playing, my parents would be like, you get $10 and that's it.
Right.
I'm an adult. I have a credit card. Who's going to stop me? It's like, well, I need somebody to stop me or this is going to be a problem. Yeah. Listeners at home, you should check out the episode I did in the first season of Casual Magic with Ellie Rice, where we both talked about basically our crippling addiction to the game before she got a job at WotC and before I became like an ambassador and stuff and started being able to self-fund my honestly, a lot of these podcasts, like sponsorships and stuff, helps pay for my Magic, so that it's kind of a it's a self perpetuating cycle that I can then feel less bad about. But it's yeah, it's rough,
I
man.
I think a lot of people can identify with that, you know. It's an interesting phenomenon that we get so drawn in, you know. And I think it has a lot to do with our identity, you know, gets very kind of seared to like Magic and to like the people that we spend time with playing Magic. And you know, it's kind of one of those things when you create a space where, you know, there's certain kind of social norms and rules, and like in that space, like it's not degenerate to buy hundreds of dollars of cards, you know?
Right?
And so like it just makes this thing a norm that's not really a norm in like society, you know?
Yeah. Like going to a con on a weekend and dropping like $400 for a
Yeah.
random card is not something normal people do. Like
No,
you shouldn't
no.
be buying an Xbox worth of one card, you know? Like
Well, I
when
mean,
you leave the con and you come back and you have perspective and you're like, what the hell did I just what?
yeah, I
um,
mean, you know, whether you should or shouldn't is a whole nother question, right?
well,
It's
yeah, I mean,
about,
like
yeah, yeah, but
I'm not going to judge on people, but I'm just
yeah,
saying, like, for me personally, that was a challenge that I needed help overcoming, and I overcame. Or at least I do better about selling cards now. Because before I was just like the Mengucci style, which is buy high, sell never, and
buy
and
high,
it
sell them.
yeah, and it's just like you can't. Like my wife's like, look, A, we're gonna be drowning in these things, and B, no, you better
Mhm.
start like recycling some of this, or I'm going to recycle, and it's not going to be as fun. And I'm like, fair.
Yeah,
um,
I think the recycling is probably the best bet, because then you'd be able to like, here's the thing though. Back in the day, you would be able to fund on the recycling now.
mm,
Now it's like degenerate. You know what I mean? It's like you lose every time you know, recycle. There's not ups and down, like, I don't know. Not I don't want to go back to that topic, but yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's the thing. It's a lot harder now than it
yeah,
used to be.
yeah,
But at the same time, I can still take like these random chase rares that I've just got. Like I don't care about Shieldred or whatever, and I can just sell it, and it'll be fine. The main thing is remembering that I should, and
yeah,
bringing the cards with me to a con, and then getting and giving them to DJ or Tales of Adventure or whatever, and just being like, here, take this and go, please, just take
yeah.
them out of my sight.
If
Um,
you're ever at home and you remember, you can always just ship them to me. You don't even have to wait for a con, man.
we can talk about that off stream.
Yeah.
I might need to do that. But it's just that's like because I remember reading articles from you a million years ago about like you used to have this like article series on SCG or something about trading up to
Yeah,
like because one of the things I've always dreamed about doing is like trading into a mux or trading into
right.
power, and it's like when you're on a limit, you have to learn how to do these sorts of tricks, and people just don't trade anymore, so it's not as fun.
Yeah, that was so I wrote Pact to Power, which was like kind of my first big article series. It was actually on you know, at the time it was called Mana Nation, okay? But now that's basically Cool Stuff Inc., you know.
Mm.
But at the time it was Trick Jarrett. Shout out to Trick Jarrett. What's up, dude? He hired me to write that series. Um, we chatted about it, and he kind of like threw out the idea. I thought it was a great idea, and so it's called Pack to Power. And I traded a pack of cards up to a piece of Power 9. At the time, Power was like a few $100, $400. You know, you take a $4 or $5 pack,
Oh my God.
traded it to like a $400 thing. It was, you know,
It's
it was like
cool.
it was cool. It was like a challenge, you know. Um, you know, it's so that was the thing that kind of like I think put me on the map for writing. It was after that I got picked up by Star City Games, and I wrote a bunch of articles on there about trading. One of
Yeah.
them one of them was like this article where I traded my iPad
Yeah, I
for
was just reading that.
for somebody's cards, and that was very. I remember at the time that was very. I don't know. It's like polarizing. Some people were like, "You took advantage of that guy," you know, and I'm like, "He got an iPad," you know,
Yeah,
like
like, that's still 800 that's a lot of money, that's not nothing.
yeah. So it was wild. But what I wrote the art. I think the article was very like it really peeled back like kind of my thinking, and my thinking was very manipulative. I was
Mm,
And that's how I was very manipulative in the dealing. And I think that's the thing that really rubbed people the wrong way about that article is I was just very candid about how manipulative I was being
Hmm.
in like the way I timed things and the way I pressured at certain points to get the deal done and the way I like drew out some of the value, and just shady stuff. I'm not like, by the way, I'm not endorsing any of these techniques from the past. You know what I mean? I read some of my articles from the past and I'm embarrassed by, the nature of them and like the approach that I had. At the time I looked at trading more like adversarial, like, taking advantage of
Mm.
people and stuff like that. I don't look at things like that now. But like at the time, that's how I looked. And I kind of wanted to like, as I learned about all of these tricks and all this stuff, one of the things that I wanted to do back then was like, I wanted to kind of show people the subculture of trading
Mhm.
because when I started learning it, I'm like, wow, there's this whole world inside this game, right? So there's the game itself, which is a subculture. And
Yeah.
then inside the game, there's another subculture of trading. And people don't even know, like, there's this whole like canon of like things to
Yeah.
do and like how to like get most value, and it's like things no one would talk about because obviously if you talk about it everyone knows. And like here's the thing, like we're in that world now, everybody knows all the tricks, right? Because there
Mm.
was preceded all of that was years of magic finance articles where everybody exposed every element of like that subculture. And it's like now we live in a world where people they have so much more knowledge about dealing in these
Mm.
collectibles and understanding the values of them. But back then,
It was a
nobody
wild
had
west,
any.
man.
Yeah, no one had any of that stuff. And I think that's one of the things I find like super interesting about Magic in general is just subcultures within the
Yeah.
game and like people who gather around these different you know aspects of the game and the different gatherings. It's just so cool.
I mean, a lot of that though is exact. It feels a lot like what you would hear with the early days of pro players. Like, yeah, we had the meta, we cracked the deck. Nobody else knew it. Nobody figured it out, so we were able to take advantage of it and win the tournament. Same way the dudes who are doing the binder hustling in the back of the room are sitting there like, we know what's worth what in which area, and they could do things like, if I buy this dude, like if I buy this guy's cradles because he doesn't care about them in whatever city he's
Right.
from, I can go home where they care about them and they can do like the up and down kind of like trading shenanigans. And it's wild because like that is such an obvious thing to do, but at the same time, like I'm not that type of person. I'm never thinking about like a holistic or a wider view of, oh, I can buy this and then arbitrage it for more money.
Mhm.
I'm more like, I need this card and I have this card and you want it, so let's just trade. And it's like schoolyard trading almost. But then later on, you're like, hey, did I get cheated? And they're like, well, no, because you got the card you wanted and it's making you more happy and it's doing the thing you want in your deck and you're actually using it. Maybe the financial value is different, but one of the things that's a truism is that your financial value of a card is only realized when you sell the card. And if you don't sell the card, it doesn't matter what, sorry about this paper bag, it doesn't matter what it's actually worth because like a card is only worth it something if you sell it. If you're not going to sell it, it's a cool keepsake. Enjoy
Yeah.
it. Play it in your deck. Who cares?
I
But
think I think that's a
yeah.
cool perspective. And like one of the things I learned, so like coming, into the game, coming back into the game after I left, coming back into the game, I wanted to deal fairly with people.
Yeah,
And one of the things I had a question like, am I like, how can I do this? Right. Because without all these edges, like, how can I make any profit?
sure.
And what I've learned is that people are happy with transparent dealings. If you're just like, look, I'm going to make some money on this card. Here's what it's worth. Here's what I'm going to offer. If the number is good with them, or if they're like, yeah, I want that card. I don't care about that card. All you're doing is just presenting the information. And so many more times than not, like they're just like, yeah, I'm cool with that. And it's like, wow, I never like, it's so funny because in those other days, it never dawned on me that if you just tell people, like, here's the deal, they're going to be like, that's fine. I remember one
Honesty is the
time,
best policy, man.
I
It's a
remember one
core of
time
ethics.
this guy was like, he brought his collection. It was all mapped out on a spreadsheet and it had the TCG player buy list for all the cards. And I said, I looked at the buy list and I'm like, I can't beat that buy list. So I just told him, like, hey, I can't beat this buy list. But if you want, I'll put my numbers down and then you can pick which ones you want to, sell. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, all right, I'm just letting you know ahead of time. My numbers will be lower. I'm going to put them down. I put him down. It was a big old spreadsheet. He took one card and it's like, yeah, the rest is good. And it's just like,
the convenience, man.
Just be transparent with people. Just tell them the truth, and people are going to treat you with dignity and honor if you treat them with dignity and honor.
Yeah.
And it was such a cool lesson to learn coming back, to the game.
Yeah, like I had an experience like that at a goodness gracious, at a booth that I go back to that I sell cards at a lot in at the magic shows. And I came down and I sat down with one of the dudes there, and he's like, look, I know you normally sit down with one of my other coworkers and you do a lot of business with us. We don't normally interact very often, but I see you literally month in, month out, all these things. So I'm going to tell you something that's not good for my booth, but really, this card that you want to sell me, I'm buying it for 40. The dude directly behind you is buying it for 50. You should go there and sell this card to them. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you didn't need to do that. I would have taken whatever number you gave me but his integrity was like, because we have fair dealings with each other and because we know we treat each other well, he was like, look, man, my integrity says go and get the easier money that's literally right behind you. And I was like, that's very kind of you to do. He's like, yeah, because I know you're going to tell me these other cards. I know you're going to buy a ton of cards from me anyways. I'm like, I am. And I'm going to do it more now because the fact that I know that you're being honest with me, like legitimately honest with me. And that's like so important in relationship building.
I think that's so cool. It goes a long way. There's actually a scripture in the Bible that says an imbalanced scale is an abomination to the Lord. And it's this idea that back in the day when they would trade goods, right, they'd put them on scales. And it's like, oh, okay, your wheat versus mine, whatever. And like what scummy people would do is they would put weights on the bottom of the scale to put more value on their side, right? So then they wouldn't see the weights on the bottom and they would think they're getting a fair deal, right? And so like whenever I'm doing a business deal, I always think to myself, where are your weights? You know what I mean? Are you doing on a balanced scale? Like, do they have all the information? Like, is this a fair transaction? Like, and that has helped me so much to like keep the integrity intact, and be like, look, this if this is imbalanced, it's an abomination to the Lord. So like this needs to be a balanced scale,
Yeah. And I mean that sort of ethics and integrity matters a lot to me personally. It's like people when I joined the Commander Advisory Group, one of the things that people
congrats on that, by the way.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I mean, it's been 4 years. It's been really interesting. But one of the main things, though, is that like when Sheldon brought us on, he was like, look, man, I cannot legally enforce anything. We're not an organization. But I am taking it on faith that you guys are not going to be scummy about this, that you're going to act ethically. You're not going to try to trade on like, insider information.
Oh, yeah.
You're not going to try to make money off of this. And I'm like, that didn't even occur to me.
Didn't even think about that, right?
Because like, why would I do that? That's just not how I was raised or brought up. I'm like, I couldn't even, like, the idea didn't even occur to me till you told me that I'm not supposed to buy painter servants before they get unbanned. Or I'm like, why would I do that? That's messed up. And he's like, that's why you're on the Commander. That's why you're on, because the thought is so anathema that you didn't even. And I was like, I would never abuse a position like that. Like, I realized that's not the standard way of acting. And we live in the Kali. This is the dark age where people are just doing shady stuff. But like, man, there's no need. Profiting like that is not worth the ethical cost to me.
Right.
And it's just it's bad behavior, man. That's not how I want to what I want out of my friends. And like, I don't respect that kind of scumminess. Like, yeah. Anyways, man, we're at an hour. This has been a really cool conversation.
Wow.
It flew by. Like, because like I didn't even get to ask you the core question of like, how do you price a Magic card?
How do you price a Magic card?
Yeah, like when a new set comes out, how do you know what a thing is? I mean, I realize that's a whole show by itself. So
yeah, it's funny. I got to do this for Lorcana. So Lorcana has no
Yeah,
data.
that's a brand new game
It
too.
was a brand new game, and I was pre-selling singles. I was one of the only websites on the internet pre-selling singles.
Mm,
And I was like, all right, how do we do this? How do we price? Well, I looked at the meta, right? Because there was a meta because people were playing on tabletop sim. And I
mm,
was like, okay, I looked at the rarity, the meta, like how did things get how did things show up in decks? Like, were there a lot of these? Was it, and there were certain cards like Tinkerbell was like really used a lot. And I felt like Bell was a really strong legendary, and the
mm,
ramp cards were really good. So like what I did is I based everything on a base price based on the price of a box.
mm,
Okay, so you tether it to the price of a box, right? So if a box is $140, then you say we're going to get this many commons, we're going to get this many rares, we get this. So like break that down and say, okay, if we divvy the value out to all those based on that price, most of the time commons worked out to like 25 cents, and uncommons 59 cents or whatever, and so that it gets close to that price of the box, and then bump the price of the things that are played to something that seems reasonable to their Magic equivalent,
mm,
right? So like to me, it was like, okay, this seems like a mythic rare that would be played in Modern as a 4 of, like think about the player pool of Modern, size it up or down, whether you think Lorcana is going to be like that, and then be like, okay, this will be like, this fits the bill of a Liliana. It'll probably be like this much. And then you have to factor in the supply of so you get that kind of price. And then
mm,
you say, how much of this product exist? Right?
mm,
Because like if it's a lot, then you can take that price down. Right? Or
mm,
you can just be prepared to drive it down with the trajectory. If it's a
mm,
little bit, you can be prepared to drive it up, because as people buy, so you might list 4 of that card, and then when you sell 4, raise it by 15% and put another 4 up. And then when you sell 4 of those, raise it by 25%, put 4 up. See what I'm saying? It's like testing
mm.
the market. And
Sure.
so it's so funny because like Lorcana had no data, and I started with that. And there were people who bought from me who were like in the industry. Okay. So I'm like, my prices are on, dude. Cause like these people are buying, like they don't mess around. You know what I mean? And so like if I were to price a brand new set, like for a Magic card, a lot
Mm,
of times you don't have to do all that work. All you have to do is look at what TCG has about, and then like look at the print run and be like, okay, is this going to go down or is it going to go up? If it's a commander card, it's typically going to go up. Okay.
mm,
If it's a like a modern staple, it's typically going to go down. And the reason why is because modern players
yeah.
have already figured out
Mm.
what they need, and also the player base of Modern is smaller than Commander. Okay, um, by a little bit, just a little bit,
A smidge, yeah.
just a smidge, a scotch. so, so the other thing is that Commander players take a minute to adopt things. So it takes a
Yeah,
minute for them to be like, oh yeah, this card should be in my deck. It's so cool because the phenomenon is as they see it played,
yeah,
they go, oh, I need that. And so
yeah.
it takes a little bit of time to like start getting in there. So that happened with the One Ring. It happened with like Beseech the Mirror, And so like when it's a commander card and you see it's getting commander buzz, another thing is the shows like game nights and stuff like that, right? If they start
Game
talking
night
about it,
effect. Mm-hmm.
it takes time, right? Or if you post it on your Twitter, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm
There's a
saying? Like
reason why the only cards I post on Twitter these days are random.
the random
Because
ones.
if I
Yeah.
don't, people it's price manipulation. Because people are like, "Oh my god, you mentioned a card and it's sold out." I'm like,
Yeah.
like
And so
I can't do it anymore. I can only post random. Like every time I post a card, it's always got to be like some bulk crap or something utterly random. Like, because otherwise I'll get in trouble.
yeah. So does that make sense for the pricing?
Yeah,
Like,
for sure. That's a fantastic,
yeah.
really clever. That makes sense. And you see what the market will bear, and you push until it does, and then you're like, okay, it's too high. Maybe we tinker it down again.
Yeah, it's a lot of iteration. You have to really be at the knobs.
Yeah.
Um, and I have a pricing script that does a lot of this stuff. So,
Yeah, but you still have to understand the game at least enough to know what's going to be hot or not, right?
well, yeah, I wrote the script, so I had to like tell it what to do, right? So, like, you do have to like, manipulate it in that way. But but I don't like the script pretty much takes care of things, and it does it with a pretty good like amount of accuracy. Like I said, the Lorcana stuff starting like day one was something I had to do, like work some. I had to work a bit on that to try to make sure that prices were like
But
made
it's impressive
sense.
that you went and actually did research.
What's that?
It's impressive that you went and did research on that and like looked it up and saw the games and studied the meta and thing. That's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, I was in on Lorcana since hour one. As soon as they released the article, I was on vacation, and I was actually like making social media accounts on vacation. We were at like a park, like we were like they're getting on rides. The kids were getting on rides, and I was on my phone just like making the Discord, making social. And my wife and my mother-in-law were like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "They just released a Disney card game. It's gonna be huge. I'm gonna get it on the ground floor."
I mean, the real talk is Disney could have put whatever the hell they wanted on those cards and sold 1 billion of them because
Facts.
it's Disney.
Facts.
But if they're making
And
a
it was
game that's
actually good.
playable, yeah, like
The game is actually good. And so like, yeah, that was so yeah. So I put so much effort in that because I was like, I want to be like number one Lorcana. It didn't work out because they didn't print enough products. So
yeah.
rip. I mean, that's just what happened.
You tried though. You like
It was a
they
fun exercise. I tried.
hoisted themselves is what they did, man. But like, I don't think it's weird to me that they did not expect that this was going to be like a groundbreaking hit. Like, it's just insane to me that they were like, "What if we only print like a normal board run?" And it's like, no, you can't. You can't.
I told them I now I don't know. I don't want to say too much, but I said that you should check Flesh and Blood print runs. You should get the print run of Monarch, and that should be your base print run. Monarch
Right.
was the overprinted set for Flesh and Blood. It was like way overprinted, and it crashed the Flesh and Blood market. I think that's where Lorcana should have started, was at a print run the size of Monarch. And they figured it out now. I think they're really keeping the print runs going, which is good. Okay. They're doing it now. But like on launch, it was so rough.
Yeah.
It was so rough.
I don't know. It's like I've got space in my life for one game, and I tried. Like I can't. I'm too old to get into another game. I just don't have the time.
It's nice to have a palate cleanser, like we could do that with formats in Magic. So it's like, oh, like I've played a lot of like right now I'm doing a lot of CDH, so like I play a lot of like kind of mid commander, and then I'm like, you know what? I want to change of pace. Let's try to kill people on turn one with Crick, but even then, like, we could do that with formats of Magic, or you could do it in our game. Like with Lorcana, it's like, I want to try to do this different kind of thing, think a little bit differently, it makes sense, but I get it. Like, especially from an investment point of view, it's like, man, I don't, I have a hard enough time. Like a lot of people are just like, look, I invest way too much in Magic. I just
don't have the bandwidth for another one.
Yeah.
Like, and also I don't care. I like Magic.
I hear you, man.
But you know what, though? I will say this. Your Discord community is a lot of fun. It was a really kind place when I was hanging out there. And I love watching your streams when you're doing your late night pack cracking things. And sometimes I'm like, man, you were up at like 3 a.m, like, because this is midnight California that I'm watching.
Right.
Like, what are you doing? But yeah, it's really enjoyable to watch you. I like your internet presence. And yeah, it was a lovely conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me on, and it's great to have you in the Discord and like being part of the streams and stuff like that, man. I just appreciate you so much in the community, Shivam. I'm sure we could talk forever about different things, but
one of these days we'll sit and have a nice little religious roundtable and talk about ethics and happiness. But in the meantime, though, if folks wanted to find you, where could they go?
So on Twitter, it's Medina_IRL. And then if you want to check out the shop, it's A_Refuge_shop. So that's our Twitter on there. We're also on Instagram, Alchemist Refuge, and I'm on Instagram, Medina_IRL. So hit up those things. Check out alchemistrefuge.shop. That's our website. And yeah,
I highly recommend them. I buy a lot of cards from these guys. I love them. But yeah, my friend, as always, you can find me on Twitter at Gears. You can find this podcast anywhere podcasts are sold, or at Cool Stuff Inc. on Tuesdays, or at YouTube on Tuesdays, thanks to my editor, Daniel May. You can also find me on Shivam and Wheeler Love Magic or the Chronicles of Dragonlance. And you can find my Patreon at patreon.com/ShivanB. And remember, my friends, it's not magic without the gathering, and we'll see you next time.